Hey all, so this is episode 2 of this little series I'm doing. If you haven't seen the first one, then go ahead and check that out. I'll link it in the description. But the basic idea here is who are the essential champions in a given class for Alliance War offense? And what I mean by that is not necessarily who are the best champions in that class, but when an officer sits down to plan out attack, or if you're somewhere where you just are assigned lanes for a season, when you are sitting down and looking at your lane and trying to figure out who to bring, these are the champions that I think you want to have available to solve most of the problems that usually come up. And I'm dividing them into two tiers. They're the ones that I think every battle group, absolutely no excuses, needs to have at least one of available. And then there's the second tier where I think things are going to be easier for you if you have one of these around, but it's not the end of the world if you don't. And Cosmic especially has gone through so much upheaval recently that I am going to talk about a couple honorable mentions at the end that I think might work their way up in the future. But let's start off with who I have for now. So I said the same thing with tech. I don't really want to go in order for any of these lists, but it nevertheless feels appropriate to start with Corvus. He was the king for a very, very long time. Those of us who have been around remember when the single most important thing about planning your defense was limiting the Corvus charges. If you have a hard fight in the middle of the map, make sure they can't get Corvus charges on the way up to it. If you do have to place mutants, techs, or Avengers, make sure they're all the way at the end, out of the way, and hopefully you're forcing some other attackers to go there. Like, it used to be the thing that all of Alliance War was warped around. Thankfully, he's not that dominant anymore, but there's still places where he is absolutely the best option, and he is so fast that he is often one of the safest ones if you, of course, jump through the hoops of giving him his power start, his power back boosts, his recoil tree masteries. There's a whole thing that goes with him, but you really want to have at least one person in every battle group who knows how to use him and is willing to make those investments for when it really counts. So, moving on to one that may prove a little bit controversial is Cosmic Ghost Rider, who at various times has probably topped out the list in this game of most overrated characters, period. And the main reason is because he does one thing absurdly well. He has very, very good damage output. There's not a whole lot of other utility that he brings to the table, but there is enough. One of the primary reasons that you're going to see CGR assigned in war is for something like a Killmonger, where you need that permanent armor break. As a matter of fact, Killmongers are usually placed specifically on nodes that have some kind of shrugging to prevent them from just getting murked by CGR. He also comes into play for his bleed immunity, for his incinerate immunity, and for the fact that when he's delivering his massive damage, he does have that power lock, and when awakened, that fate seal. All of those things together give you a champion that you're not going to be using all the time, but I feel very strongly that every battle group wants at least one around. There have been a few times in the last couple seasons where we've been trying to put the plan together and we've come down to, okay, but we just have these last few nodes and they're going to be a problem. Oh, wait, Cosmic Ghost Rider exists. He'll be fine there, right? Yeah, cool, done. And that's kind of the mark of an essential champion, in my opinion. Next up, we have another one that may get some people up in arms, and that's because I'm showing Venompool here instead of Venom. But that's just because this is the one I have. I think that they are largely interchangeable and that you want one or the other at rank 3 for a battle group, but ideally both. And that's because both of them are just different enough that they're better in different areas. Like for Mighty Charge, I would probably prefer Venompool for some of his best uses, which at the moment is often Penny Parker. But for something like Polka Dot Power, then Venom is going to win every time. There are a number of other pros and cons between the two of them, but really the important thing is that I think that they are probably the two best and most war appropriate champions out of the current cosmic class of characters with resistance to power drain and power burn, especially from techs. And that is a piece of utility that you really, really want available. Additionally, both of them can turn off the evasion of Spider-Verse heroes, although Venom is a little bit more reliable in that respect. Point being, you want at least one out of the two of these available in your roster to deal with that Warlock on the power drain node, that Penny Parker over there, etc., etc. You probably don't need more than one, but you really want the one. Rounding out the group, we have the new kid on the block, Hercules, who, if you haven't heard, is pretty freaking good. I mean, this guy just has a suite of abilities that are incredibly useful in war. Probably the single most important is his absurd damage output. As my friend Work in Progress says, because he has a rank 4 Hercules, Hercules can take out a lot of nodes and champions that he has no business taking. He doesn't actually have direct counters to anything they do. He just kind of rolls up and bets that the other guy dies first. And he's often right. That, in and of itself, when taken to that extreme, is pretty darn good. It's one of the same reasons that Corvus is on this list. But then Hercules also has access to stun immunity through his heroic feats. He has access to True Sense, which is that nice little miss counter. And he can get around damage caps to some extent because he has those red numbers attached to his attacks. We didn't have one until very recently in my battle group, but Strands pulled one, took him to rank 3, and immediately rolled him out for the 4 Loki War, and took, I think it was a mirror match of Hercules versus Hercules on Encroaching Stun, and he was just laughing coming out the other side of it because he's like, this guy does not feel fair. And there might be a debate to be had there, but while he's in his current state, which is likely to last for the foreseeable future, you want one of these around. You want somebody who knows how to use him, how to maximize him, and you just want to be able to rely on that absurd damage output and that stun immunity. So moving on to tier 2, these are again the champions that I would call nice to have rather than must have, and I think Captain Marvel movie is a really good example of that. There are places, especially on Hazard Shift or where you need that incidental armor break, that she is really, really good. But they're few enough and far enough between, and enough of them have alternatives that I don't think I can call her essential. Like, the hazard shift nodes that she's so good for, she does kind of cheese them and can get through them incredibly quickly, but most of those same fights can be taken with Ghost, Claire, Red Hulk, someone further up the chain who can also take a bunch of other fights more reliably. And so that's why I put her here in this second one. But if you have her available, use her. Another example of this is Angela, because when she has that high sig and or when she has help from the Odin pre-fights, she really has an incredible amount of utility to go along with her solid damage and sustainability. The ability to bypass auto block, to bypass, nullify effects, to laugh at damage over time effects, all damage over time effects. She is really good, but the problem is that it is such an incredible investment that it's hard to get her at a level that truly feels usable. A lot of the Angelas that I have seen people use are actually 5 stars because it makes the SIG ability more usable, but you often don't assign 5 stars to war, and for her uses especially, there are going to be alternatives at the 6-star level. I haven't had access to an Angela in planning for a couple seasons now, and I haven't really felt like I missed her. But when I did have access to one, it was really nice and it did simplify some things. So I feel like she does belong in that second tier. And then to quickly go through the honorable mentions, I have not seen many people use Hyperion on attack for anything at all in a while, and the last time I did see it was kind of in smaller alliances. He would be used for polka dot power because he would gain power on his own and then turn off the stunning reflection by applying Incinerate. But it was mostly alliances that didn't have other options that were available as 6 stars. And because of that, I haven't seen him personally from us or our opponents in a very long time. And additionally, it was pretty much that one node. However, I do know that Hyperion can do a lot more than a lot of his casual fans realize he can, because I was kind of a Hyperion main for over a year. I brought him to almost every war for like, I don't know, 10 seasons in a row on the old map, and I would use him to take that Killmonger on Masochism and Aspect of Evolution, the fabled Node 29 from a couple maps ago. So there's a lot in this guy's kit that could be more useful as we start seeing him as a 6 star, as people start taking him to rank 3, really learning him again after a break. So I think there's an excellent chance that he moves up, but I haven't seen it yet. Same idea with Medusa. She's still one of the best counters for robots in certain places, and now she's available as a 6 star again. We actually assigned the rank 3 that we have against a Nimrod in that 4 Loki war, and it worked out great, but that is a single opponent, and on other nodes there would probably be better counters. So I still don't feel comfortable moving her up into that tier 2 spot just yet, but I've got my eye on her. And then lastly is one of my favorites here, Old Man Asgard. I love Odin to pieces. I think that he's incredibly fun to play, he hits hard, he's tanky, he has a lot more utility than people realize. I mean, the True Strike alone is really, really good, but I haven't seen him brought to war. I have not found space for him on my team. I haven't really seen other people bring him for anything other than the occasional shock resistance pre-fight. And so these last 3, I think, other than honorable mention, the best name for them would be Unproven, and that would probably extend to a couple others that I still consider to be very good, like maybe Cull Obsidian or Red Goblin. I know they have their uses, but I don't consider them proven, and so I wouldn't necessarily recommend someone rank them up for the purpose of war. But I am very open to anybody else's thoughts on especially these last 3 champions, maybe the 2 I just mentioned, or any others that have not appeared in this video. What am I missing out on? Have you taken fights with them? Have they been really safe? Again, this list is aimed more at tier 1, tier 2, where you are fighting, the highest level of defenders with the largest boosts to attack and health and the hardest nodes. But I'm curious for all experiences. If anybody is using cosmics that I have not put in my tier 1 and 2 for war on a regular basis with great results, please let me know. I'm very curious to hear about that. I hope you guys are enjoying this series. I am enjoying making it, kind of setting down for other people the thoughts that I've had over the past few months of, watching war unfolding and getting back into planning. And I hope it's helpful to some of y'all out there. I will be doing Mystic next. I'm not sure entirely when, but sometime later this week. So if you want to make sure you catch that, as well as my war videos and other uploads, please subscribe, hit that bell icon for notifications, and I will catch y'all next time. Take care.